Hey everyone, it's Wallace from SchoolRubric here, and we are honored to have with us today Julia Reynen, who's the founder and principal advisor of Culture Innovator, a consulting firm based out of Toronto, Canada, that supports individuals and teams to hone their leadership abilities in order to scale their businesses without compromising workplace culture. Although much of Julia's work today revolves around working with technology and nonprofit organizations, she previously worked as an international school educator, having served as the principal at Korea International School and teaching at Jakarta Intercultural School and the International School of Panama. Julia, it's great to be with you today, and thank you for being here.
Wallace, thank you so much for having me. What a great welcome. Really happy to be with you here today.
Tell us a little bit about Culture Innovator. You relocated back to Canada after a decade overseas in international schools and decided to found this consulting firm. What kind of needs and opportunities did you see and to make the leap?
Absolutely. During my time abroad, I really got to witness a really special time in economic development, frankly, between Latin America and the Asia Pacific region. Really, following the '08 economic downswing, there was really an uprise in startups, particularly in places that I lived. So between Panama and Jakarta, there was a huge influx with folks starting up new businesses, and really what I witnessed to be needing support in terms of scaling up their operation with relation to leadership management, organizational development, and so on. And so I saw this actually reflected in my own environment as we all, forge ahead with the continuous improvement process. Many schools at different stages of the development process really reflected in what was actually going on in the community. And so that sort of like gave me the initial idea in terms of where I wanted to be spending my time in the future. And so really looking at focusing on working with individuals, teams, and organizations on establishing and operationalizing their mission and vision, identifying core values and utilizing them as a lens for decision making, as well as creating and implementing equitable, well-researched, coherent policies which serve all stakeholders rather than exclude and disadvantage them. So that's a bit of the focus of my work right now.
Thanks for sharing that. That's really helpful. And I know that you had identified a number of opportunities in the sector a few years ago when jumping into this opportunity, but now it's 2020. We're going through a pandemic. Tell us a little bit, has your outlook changed at all due to the pandemic?
Digging in here in the Toronto scene, it has sort of altered my lens a little bit, but frankly, the approach or the idea behind the impetus to the consultancy is still the same. Really, the vehicle is just different. So throughout the pandemic, I really realized that scaling my own business was necessary in order for sustainable growth for the future. And that means for me, looking for ways virtually of meeting and working with clients individually and in teams and larger groups of folks. And so that's really sort of like given me a nice segue into my complementary venture, which is Clear Crossing Academy.
So Julius, tell us a little bit more about Clear Crossing Academy.
So Clear Crossing Academy really is being set up to deliver a robust and structured online course network, as well as an interactive social learning platform. We are going to be focused solely right now in the areas of leadership development, culture within organizations, building strong, cohesive, positive workplace culture, as well as placing an emphasis and importance on storytelling within organizations, and as well as strengthening that within individuals. All of our content is going to be available via a mobile app as well as via desktop, and there will be free and paid plans available. Right now, we're working towards launching this initiative in fall of 2020. And we're currently seeking some advisors and funding, actually. And so that's exciting. And if you're interested in learning, if anyone out there right now is interested in learning more, you can visit us at clearcrossingacademy.com.
Thanks for sharing that information about the app. We'll stay tuned for that release in the fall. Let's move on and let's talk about something that's really important. I know that organizational efficiency, that's one of your mantras. We've talked a couple of times offline, and I know that's one of the things that you feel is really important in organization. and especially having strong, courageous leadership at all levels. What does that mean in more explicit, concrete terms?
Courageous leadership is really all-encompassing. Here are a handful of things that we're working on with leaders right now at Culture Innovator. So courageous leaders are individuals who put people first, bottom line, are willing to fail, strives towards self-awareness as well as self-compassion. Also, individuals who have empathy for others and people who frankly challenge the status quo. That's a courageous leader for me.
And let's talk a little bit and delve in a little bit deeper with some of the work that you actually do with organizations. Developing that positive workplace culture is just so crucial and it's so important. A positive workplace culture is one that's rooted in respect, trust, shared values. Throughout all the organizations that you're working with, what are some of the common gaps that you're seeing that act as barriers to preventing companies and organizations from achieving this positive workplace culture?
Wallace, that's a great question. Some of the gaps that I've been noticing actually most recently would be, number one, a lack of effective communication. And so, I mean, things are being communicated rather, but the message might just not be getting across in the way in which it was intended. And so best intentions are frankly falling short of what was intended there. Incongruence between words and actions are also a really big gap right now in terms of what we say we do and what we really do. And so working with leaders on closing that gap and finding congruence and alignment is key. I would say the third and really important gap as well would be just frankly a lack of system-wide clarity. And so often when things are happening really, really fast, particularly right now in the times that we find ourselves in, many people lose sight of the importance of providing avenues for different communication with different folks within the organization to ensure that there is clarity across the whole system.
So Julia, I know that you spent some time working in international schools as an educator and as an administrator, and I'm really curious what your thoughts are on using your firsthand knowledge and insight on building positive workplace culture in international schools. Can you share with us some of your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, Wallace. So institutions who are really committed to this work, and committed, I mean, actually will be spending a great deal of time in terms of allocating budget as well as human and other resources towards this effort. And I'm going to start off by acknowledging that all of this can't be possible without, frankly, entities like boards, leadership teams, faculties, staff, as well as the broader school community being fully bought into this process. Here are a few indicators that I've come up with for success related to really creating a cohesive and positive workplace culture within institutions. So each member of the organization needs to be really compelled by and bought into your why. So why are you doing what you're doing? And that needs to be living and breathing within the organization. We need to frankly put people first, bottom line, as well as really placing an emphasis and priority upon really valuing the local culture and learning, deeply learning about customs and traditions, and really valuing this work authentically within the organization and finding roots within the local community in order to enrich the learning environment that we seek to achieve with international education. Finally, I want to end on a note of storytelling. Organizations that are great organizations that really stick in your mind have and share wonderful stories, not only about their triumphs, but they share stories about what challenges them, what they're interested in, what they're intrigued by, and what their next moves might be. And so I really want to encourage people towards that as well.
And Julia, just kind of a follow-up question. You know, a lot of schools, a lot of international schools, even a lot of businesses are moving a lot of their operations virtually amidst what's happening in the pandemic. And even some of them are continuing operations or thinking about continuing operations post-pandemic virtually. And so with that change to virtual, and with some of the necessity that's being brought about, I wonder how organizations should think about keeping an eye on positive workplace culture and morale in a virtual environment. What are some of your thoughts about that?
Well, as I see this being approached in three different ways. First, really allowing your mission and your vision, as well as your core values, to drive the decision-making process. Just because a lot of things have changed doesn't mean that we should be losing focus of actually what matters the most when it comes to decision-making. Assigning or reassigning a budget for this kind of work. Frankly, this isn't volunteer work. It's not the side of the desk for the HR professionals. It's not volunteer work for teachers and for leaders. There needs to be a budget allocated to this work within an organization. And so finding or reallocating that money is really important. Finally, looking at the data. So a lot of us collect a lot of data over an academic year, and a lot of this data can be used for this type of work. But frankly, I'm calling for reaching back out to a variety of stakeholders, so faculty, staff, students, families, other contributors to institutions, and really seeking additional data points around people's thoughts and feelings and opinions around their stamina right now. Their readiness to return to whatever reality it is that you are faced with. I realize that is a varied prospect these days. Access to resources, overall physical, mental health and well-being, as well as just personal needs or needs that their family might have due to the trying times that we've been through in the last 4 months. And finally, maybe what they'd like to give or contribute to the community. It's interesting, very often when we're seeking information from others, we sometimes forget to ask, what might you like to contribute? And from what I'm hearing these days, it might actually surprise you. People will likely be willing to contribute and support the system in ways that you might not have imagined. So I'm really encouraging people to do that.
Julia, thank you so much for sharing some of this information with us. This is really valuable stuff that leaders and schools and in organizations across the world can really use. Where can folks go if they want to learn more about your consulting company or some of the work that you do?
If anyone out there wants to learn more about my work currently or what I'm getting into in the near future, you can visit me at www.juliareynen.com or follow us and visit us at www.clearcrossingacademy.com.
Great. Thanks so much. Again, Julia, really appreciate the time you took to speak with us today. Stay safe. Hope to catch up with you again soon.
Same to you, Wallace. Thanks so much.